Hey guys, so Dr. Ron asked me to do a 10 to 15 minute video for our graduating seniors of things I wish I knew before I went to Bible college. Let me say, first of all, congratulations on making it to this point. It's a lot of work, isn't it? It's been a lot of effort and challenge and homework, especially if you took any of my classes, which I'm sure you did, to get to this point. I like those papers, especially that church admin project. That was fun, wasn't it? You're going to be thankful you did that. Believe me. Maybe not. I don't know. So, hey, I hope that you have enjoyed the process and you've enjoyed the journey of going through college. It has been a lot of work, a lot of late nights, a lot of studying, a lot of writing, all of those things that are required to make it to this point. So let me congratulate you. I won't be able to make it to your graduation this year, which will be the first time I've missed a Bethel College graduation in like 8 years. And so, sorry I can't be with you guys, but I pray that it's a wonderful and memorable day for you. So, talking about going into ministry, you know, when we go into ministry full time or part time, doesn't matter. Even if you end up in a volunteer position, you know, the Bible tells us don't despise small beginnings. So if God calls you to a volunteer, temporary, or a volunteer, even permanent, I mean, a volunteer position, so you have to be bivocational. That's great. Just understand where God's called you to. But as you move into it, I want you to go in with your eyes wide open and understand that it's a ton of work. It's just a ton of work. You know, it's one of those funny things. People oftentimes will say, "Man, that person got so lucky. That person got so lucky." And if you talk to somebody that's been really successful, they'll tell you that luck oftentimes looks a lot like hard work. It doesn't get handed to you, and you're dealing with one of the most sensitive things in people's lives. You're dealing with their spiritual well-being, and so people are very touchy and very challenging. And so, if you go with your eyes wide open, you understand that it's a real part of ministry, and so it's not a bad thing. It's just a thing. I always quote Pete. You might not know who Pete is. Pete from the Muppets Take Manhattan. It's a great quote, but just remember, people's is people's. And so if you love people, if you care about people, if you're genuine, honest, and open and in relationship with people, you'll do well. It's not always going to be easy. There's a great book out there by, I forget who wrote it. It's called Well-Intentioned Dragons. There's people in church that think they're doing you a favor, that think you're helping you, but they're not necessarily. But if you have the right perspective on your role, then you're going to help a lot of people in that process. And I keep in mind our role in ministry is to help shepherd and to help guide and direct and help lead people. And so we have to keep that in mind at all times. And so lead from a position of Matthew 20, as we talked about, servant leadership. Jesus didn't come to be served, but to serve. And then the other important thing I really want you to keep as a foundational element for your leadership in ministry is from Philippians 2. Understanding that Christ humbled himself unto the point of death, and then it was God that glorified him. See, we sometimes think it's going to be our hard work, it's going to be our efforts, it's going to be what we do that glorifies us, but it really is God. And so if we can keep those two things of being a servant first and letting God take care of our promotion, then I think you can be a lot more happy in ministry, a lot happier in ministry in the long term, because it's not a competition with the person down the street. It's not a competition with the church down the street. It's not a competition with your friend that maybe they've got a good relationship with somebody, and right out of Bible college they get hired at a church of 4,000 people, and here you are at a church of 40. You're wondering, dear God, why me? Why me? Well, here's the thing. The Lord will take care of your promotion. So be faithful, be servant, and be humble in your leadership and love people, and you'll do well. And there's just a few practical things I want to share with you about being successful in ministry, things that I do wish somebody had shared with me early on, and it would have been helpful for me. The first thing I want to tell you, choose your boss, who you're going to work for, and your next church. Choose them very deliberately, okay? Be very intentional in the process. Interview them as they are interviewing you. Don't just look for a position. Find the right place to be. And that even if that means telling someplace no without any place else lined up. My first summer of interviewing for positions, I did not have multiple interviews lined up. I had one interview. lined up, and I did that within a week of graduating, and I turned them down without another interview lined up. They interviewed me, offered me the job on the spot, and in the interview process, they said some things that concerned me, that gave me some red flags, and I turned them down without anyone else lined up. I did that 3 times that summer. I would turn one down without anything else lined up, and finally, I ended up at the position I spent some time at. It was good in Minnesota. But you don't want to just find a position. You want to find the right place to be. And so make sure that you're asking questions about how they lead, what's their leadership style, what do they value as a pastor. And I have found it is more important to know the leadership philosophy of the pastor than the community of the church. That's really more important, because that's who's going to guide and direct so much of your time. And so spend a lot of time interviewing them. And so that's probably my first thing I wish somebody had given me a little more advice on, because I had some positions that weren't the best, and it's because I didn't do enough time doing my homework to learn about the church. And so in that process, ask the pastor if there's people that you could talk to about them. To learn about them. And if they don't want you to do your homework about them, that should be a big red flag. So that'd be one of the first things I tell you. Make sure that you choose your boss very deliberately, and that you interview the church and interview the pastor while you're going through that process. Be real intentional about it. The next thing I want you to do, make sure that you do, is you're not a lone ranger. Don't do it by yourself. Find peers and mentors. So find people outside of the church that you can be in relationship with, people that you can sharpen iron, that you can have some good feedback from, that aren't connected to the church that you're at. Because there's going to be some things that you can't share that would be inappropriate to share with somebody in the church. And so make sure that you find some friends and peers. They don't necessarily have to be in the same town. It is nice if they are, but make sure to intentionally build those relationships. And then find some mentors. Bible college has been great to prepare you, but it hasn't taught you everything you need to know. And so I want you to find people, whether that means you find a coaching program, or whether that means you find an older pastor that you want to say, hey, I need somebody to help me, walk alongside me. Find somebody that's going to help you walk through this. And don't just find somebody that's close to your age as a mentor. Find somebody that has some experience, has some history, and has really something to teach you, because it'll help you stay sharp in the long run. So find peers, find mentors. Don't skip your devotional time. Now, I know you say, well, that just seems like such an obvious thing, Pastor Spencer, because I'm going to be a I'm going to be a pastor. I'm going to be a pastor. I'm going to work in a church. Listen, the first thing I told you is church busy. Church is busy, right? It's super busy. And because it is so busy, the things that you don't make time for just don't happen. And so schedule a regular time for your devotions. And I know it sounds funny, but Robert Clinton, his study shows that 2/3 of people that enter ministry do not retire from ministry. And I think the main reason is because they fall off track. They fall away from God. They get sidelined. They get tempted into inappropriate relationships. There's so many traps out there, and it's not necessarily just an inappropriate relationship. It's not always a moral thing. Sometimes it's just burnout, and burnout comes when you can't figure out how to get it all done. But burnout also comes when you disconnect yourself from God. Because you're trying to do it on your own strength. And so I can't emphasize enough how much you need to spend time in your devotions. And that's where your peers and mentors are helpful. Build a relationship with your staff, the other people, and there might not be other staff members but don't try and do it by yourself. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. You need to be part of a team. You need to be part of a community. You can get a lot of stuff done on your own. But if you do it all by yourself, you're not really glorifying God, because glorifying God is part of building up the body of Christ. One of your jobs as a pastor is to prepare the saints for works of service. And so if you're doing all the work, you're not preparing the saints for the works of service. And so let me encourage you to get that in your mind, that you need to be a team builder. You need to be an intentional, relational person. You need to have these things in your wheelhouse or in your pocket all the time, so that you can be successful for the long term. If you do it by yourself, you'll be successful for a short season. But if you do it as a team, you'll have the potential of being much, much more successful for a much longer time. And so, yeah, choose your boss, interview the church. I'm reading my notes here. Find peers and mentors. Don't skip your devotional and personal times. If you're married, make family time, make it a priority. Because right now, the church is so busy. Even a moderate sized church is so busy. You could have something every night, and you have to be the one that takes the responsibility of regulating your schedule and finding something that works for your family. So if you have family, young kids, make sure that you are making family time a priority. And that should be really part of your interview process of asking your next pastor, how are you going to help me make sure I maintain my spiritual integrity? How are you going to help me make sure that I maintain my family integrity? Workaholics are hard. I've been a workaholic. Before I was married, and I've been married now for almost 11 years, before I was married, I'd work 78 hours a week because I didn't have anything else to do. And so when I got married, I had to really trim that back. And trim back means I work 45 to 50 hours a week. But then when I had a kid, my son Bennett, he's almost 4 now. I had to trim that even back more, or I had to be more intentional in my family time because I could be out 7 nights a week very easily. I have enough appointments and meetings and stuff. Everybody has something that they want to do. And so be intentional with your time. And here's a real good piece of advice for you, okay? Don't sweat the small stuff. And most of it's small stuff, okay? Don't sweat the small stuff. Depending upon your personality, you can get upset real quick. But remember, you're dealing with people. And people they're challenging. But if you look at them with grace and you look at them with love and you look at them with the perspective of understanding that they are growing just as you are growing, it gives you that greater opportunity to not be hurt, not be offended. And if you look at them, as people that are broken, that are emotionally unhealthy or spiritually unhealthy, that need to come along, then it will help you in the long term be successful. And so I would encourage you in that to don't wear your feelings on your sleeves because people say things and they don't necessarily mean it the way it comes across. And you can get offended, you can get hurt, or you can have grace. And I would encourage you to have grace. And then the last thing I would really encourage you to do is to practice soul care. I want you to really be intentional about taking care of yourself, physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. Make break times for your life. There's a great book called Soul Keeping by John Ortberg. And in that book, he interviews Dallas Willard, a great theologian. And he asked Dallas Willard, he goes, well, what can I do for my spiritual health? What do we need to do for spiritual health? And Dallas Willard says, okay, I'm going to tell you what you need to do. And so John Ortberg pulls out his pen and he's getting ready to write it down. And here's what Dallas Willard says: ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. Writes it down and looks up at Dallas Willard and says, okay, what else? And Dallas Willard said, that's all there is. Ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. Ministry is busy. It's a lot of hard work. Christmas and Easter, there's times of the year where you're just going to work 60, 70, 80 hours. That's just part of life. It's part of ministry. It's part of working at a church. You're going to miss family holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Mother's Day, Father's Day. You're going to miss those oftentimes unless your family lives close. It's not a bad thing. It's just a thing. It's part of being in ministry. But if you get so busy that you lose sight of your relationship with God, then it's not going to be worth it. So that's my advice for you. Choose your boss, find your peers, don't skip your devos, make sure you focus on that. Ruthlessly eliminate hurry, but be prepared for the busy. Be prepared for the work. Go into it excited, go into it encouraged, and know that God has called you to where he's putting you and that he will sustain you and make you up to the task that he's put before you. And so you're going to do a great job. I'm excited for you. Feel free to shoot me a Facebook or an email anytime you got a question. I'm more than happy to help you out. So God bless. I'm excited for you.